Welcome everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsSaysStamp.com, and I'm here with another entry for my circle journal, and I'm going to keep it creepy this time. This will be the 8th page that I'm making. I have the rest of mine that I've made so far, and I started off in January, then February, March, and then I moved on into April and May. I missed a couple months in there, so I have some more fall and also a Halloween circle journal. So I'm going to be working with some Tim Holtz goodies, and this is all from Idea-ology. This is his new Halloween, and this is going to be fun to put something together that's super creepy. I do have all of these linked in the description box below in case you want to make some cards or also a journal page for yourself. I've used the Simon Says Stamp circle dies, and I've cut a 4 1/4 size circle, and I just use fob cardstock. You could use whatever you want. So I'm going to be using the large journaling strips for Halloween. I'm going to pick out a couple strips, and I'll be using my glue stick to glue these onto the circle. I've gone through all of the collage pieces, and I've picked out 2 that I'll be using for this, and I'll need 2 to go across for the size of the circle. These are really great. You can cut them apart and you can rearrange them however you want. So I'll be starting on the right side, and I'm using the Simon Says Stamp glue stick. I love this one because it's so super smooth and it just glides over the paper. So I'm just covering about half of my circle. And now I can place that collage strip right onto the circle, and I'm going to make sure that I have it all the way around the edge, and I'll just readjust it right off to the right, and then I can press that down and move on to the next piece. For this one, I'm going to trim this apart, and I'm just using my Simon Says Stamp Everyday Scissors and cutting right on that line. I do want to have that toxic right at the bottom, so I'm just going to clip off the man so that I can put this other piece on top. I've checked it to my circle and it's going to match up just great. And so now I'm just going to use that glue stick again, and I'm going to go over all the exposed edges of my disc. And now I can place my second piece right next to the first. Once I have those glued down, I can trim around the disc just using the back side and my scissors and just follow that disc around. I've decided I also want to use this skeleton piece. It's pretty creepy, so I'm going to trim off the top portion, and then I can add my glue stick to the back of this piece and place it onto my disc. I'll be creating a window out of the Halloween Baseboards and also the Halloween Transparencies. And there's a hole right in that second window on the right, and I want to glue this down in place to where I have that hole to fit in that opening. And to glue this down, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky glue. This is a perfect glue to glue all your different surfaces together. And I'm just going around all those window panes and frame of the window. And now I can set my window right on top of that transparency and allow that to dry. I've picked out this scary looking lady. She just has an evil face, and this is from the Tim Holtz layering options, and it has some paper dolls in there. So I'm going to place her behind the window. But before I do, I'm going to use one of the stickers from Tim's Halloween sticker book. These are super fun. There's these witches' hats, and the way they are cut, there's a slit to where you can slide the paper doll's head right into that opening. So I'm going to remove that slit and feed her head right into that. And I'm sorry I'm a little off screen. I do wear bifocals, so I have to see. And so that hat fits perfectly on her, and it's all in one piece now. Now that my window transparency is dry, I'm just going to trim around it just using that window base as the guide for my scissors. On the back side of that window, I'm just adding glue around to where my witch is going to sit, and I'm going to turn this over. Now her arm is cut out, so what I'm going to do is feed her arm out, and then I'm going to place her, and I'm going to let this dry for a minute before I trim around the outside. You do want to give your glue about 5 minutes to set up before you try to trim off around the edges. Since it's sitting on that transparency, it does have a tendency to slide around. So just trim off the excess witch with your scissors. And if you need to, you can add a few spots of glue from the back side just to hold her in place. And next, I'm placing a small girl right into where her face is showing through one of those window panes, and I'm adding the glue to the back and just layering that up. And then I can trim off the bottom portion of her dress and legs to finish that bottom. In the baseboard set, there's also these strips of words, and I've chose Dreadfully Wicked, and I'm adding glue to the front of that frame. And I do want to set this right under her hand, where her hand is actually out that window and pointing to that sign. Pretty creepy. And for the upper left portion, I'm just adding some glue. I'll be putting down some flowers, and these are from the layered set. They are roses that are kind of faded out, and I want this to sit to where it's offset from that frame. I do love things hanging off, and I'll just adjust that. I still want to see that little girl's face in the window, and once I have that in place, I can press it down and let it dry. Next, I've looped some black thread through one of the little plaques, and it says Beware, and I've wrapped this around that Dreadfully Wicked sign. And once I had that wrapped, I'm tying this in a knot, and then I can glue it to the back so that my little plaque will dangle off the side. My frame is pretty much complete. I do have my little Beware down there at the bottom. I've also added some paper to the back of the witch's hat so that we could see it better since it'll be sitting on some dark paper. I'll be adding a generous amount of the Simon Says Stamp glue around to all those sides and edges. And now I can set this right on top, and I'm not going to set it so it's sitting straight. I do want this sitting at an angle compared to the papers in the background. So I'm going to let this dry really well before I punch my hole. I'm using my CROP-A-DILE hole punch, and this will go through all those layers and allow me to punch a hole. It chomps right through several layers at a time. To finish this off, I've added some black and white ribbon at the top with a little loop so I can put this onto my green clip with the rest of my pages. It was super fun to pull her hand out through that window and point to the sign, and it is really super creepy, and I hope you've enjoyed this project. Here's a look again at my finished journal pages. It's been really a pleasure to go through different techniques, doing some layering, some collage, some stenciling, painting, die cutting, and putting things together. I do have all my supplies listed in the description box below, and a link to our blog post for more information about these art journals. And as always, thanks so much for watching.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.